Welcome to a new episode of the Sports Mecca podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Abramo. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Hengeli. Tonight, we are joined by Wally Judge and Jackson Kruse, who are both founders and coaches for Kruse Basketball Academy in Kansas City. Wally and Jackson, thank you guys for coming on the podcast this evening.
Oh
Appreciate
man,
appreciate you
thanks
guys.
for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as I said before, we recorded. We usually will only speak with one person, so we've had a couple instances where we've had like multiple guests on the show at once. But and this could be for both of you guys, but to start, it is December. High school basketball, college basketball, are both going on. So for you guys, update us about what both of you guys are doing currently at your academy.
I'll start, Wally, and kind of carry from there. So we'll get into the history, but this will be our third winter doing Kiba, Cruise Elite. So we've added more and more teams, so different responsibilities. As far as high school season, I'll be on the recruiting trail, things like that, going to see our guys play, other guys play, trying to prep for the spring and the circuit season, which is kind of that's the big high school recruiting season, end of March through July. On top of Wally and I are both coaches of our eighth grade team, which his son plays for. So we've been coaching them since they were six going into seventh. Um, so I've kind of taken a step back this year so I can focus more on the back end of stuff, whereas Wally has entered a new realm with sixth graders also.
I've basically been the boots on the ground, whether it be, coaching any one of our 26 teams, kind of floating just because a lot of the kids are familiar with me because I do handle a lot of the skills work. So whether it's like a group setting or even individual, like a lot of the kids have gotten a chance to interact with me kind of the one-on-one setting. So like you said, I've taken more of a step up to where I have now been moved over top of our sixth grade teams, which we have three of, as well as coaching our middle school team and our some of our high school teams when I get a chance to. But my main my main thing with Kiba is, just continue to make sure the kids get better. Just I was blessed to have, a lengthy career and learn from a lot of people, as well as to get a chance to experience things that, most don't. So my job is just to kind of try to, fill their cup with as much knowledge as I can, which is with as much, little cheats, if you may. Just trying to give them every ounce of game I got. And, hopefully it transcend like one of those things I always say is like, I look at it like I'm trying to, which sounds crazy now saying it out loud, but like I want to give them the opportunity to like live my dream, which was to go further in basketball and pursue, higher opportunities to it.
If you meet somebody or somebody who just doesn't know anything about your guys' academy, what's the rundown that you guys tell them, and what's really your big selling points about this is who we are and this is how you can learn about us?
Just overall, like just better basketball. Like me, myself, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. Uh, Jackson also is from, out of state. And, we've grown up in atmospheres where we've seen basketball in a different light. Like, me growing up with the Kevin Durant's and the Michael Beasleys and seeing all the, all Americans or NBA players that come out of my city. It was a primary thing what brought us together was we just we seem like a missing link.
There's
Like
a gap.
basketball.
There's a gap in skills development. With AAU's always been a dirty game, whether there's NIL world involved or not. You know, we kind of saw that, and the skills development is our biggest selling point. We've said Wally's our head skills development coach. Coach Jalen Fultz, who's not on here with us, he's our other skills development coordinator. They do an incredible job. And, you know, I've seen kids go from, not being able to dribble with their eyes up to being one of the best players on their team in 6 months, by just committing to these guys. So I think, our biggest selling point is the development. It's not, everybody likes to win, right? Everybody wants to win. But at the same time, you're not always going to win, right? Whether it's basketball, football, life, right? So we're trying to develop them for that next level, right? Whether that be middle school, high school, things like that.
I
And
mean, one of the stories that we even hang our hat on is a young man named Reed Umberger who's now playing at Baker, who he didn't get an opportunity to play varsity his senior year, and
or
he
junior
was
year, got cut both years, and he kept grinding, and
and he was disheartened by it, but like I said, it's about the dream, and he came to us and he just wanted to stay in the gym and just keep working and working and working, and we was in there every day, and first game he comes out. I forget which part of the season it was, whether it's fall, summer, whatever. But first game comes out, drops 29 and like seven, and ends up getting a scholarship to Baker. So it's like those stories kind of are what we live for.
where a lot of his peers, go to the same school, but he didn't get the chance to play on a high school court. So that just speaks to the development aspect, with Wally. He does a great job, whether it's a five-star high school athlete or a fourth grader. He can break down the same thing, and Coach Jalen the same way. So we pride ourselves on that. And high level coaching. You may not, when I say high level, I don't mean you had to have coached high school or you had to have coached college, but been around the game and are willing to adapt, willing to come into a system that we're trying to create here where, I mainly deal with high schoolers in eighth grade, but some game there may need to be a sub coach for a fourth grade team. We at least know, hey, I can step in and we've got this set of plays, we've got this, kind of organizational standpoint. Um, so organizational and skill development is probably our two biggest things we hang our hat on.
Right. So Wally, I mean, Sam and I know this, but a lot of the listeners who will come across our podcast, they might not know that you did play college basketball at
Because I'm
Kansas
old?
State
No, I'm joking.
and then Rutgers, and then you did play professionally overseas. Uh, we've had several former college basketball or college athletes come on. They do different things once they're retired from the game. What made you want to get into coaching and then doing basketball development?
One reason I was kind of forced out of my pro career because I had to come home and have surgery, and it was like a major surgery where I really had to like weigh my options on taking the chance of going, building my body back up to go back to play pro again. And like when I kind of stepped away, I was trying to find a direction, and basketball just seemed like it made the most sense. And like me, the thing that I think so different about me is like it's a large misconception. Like when you get the McDonald's and the parade and all that stuff beside your name, people kind of fail to forget that it's a starting point. And like I remember being like the kid on the end of the bench. I remember being like my upperclassmen wouldn't let me wear the jersey number I wanted to wear. Like I remember being that guy. Um, guys throwing passes too far in front of you in warm-ups. I remember literally being that guy. So the way that I approach is like I just worked my tail off. Win, lose, or draw, no matter who I was matched up against, I just worked my tail off, and like that's what I hope to give a lot of the kids that are around me is just like consistent hope because it transcends basketball. Like I can be up against the obstacle in my life and I can learn or I can have the fortitude to persevere through it, and that's kind of like what we do. Um, But the thing that drew me to it is just like I said, like trying to give those kids that same mindset. Like I tell them in practice, like I didn't know I was gonna be 6'9", 6'10". I didn't know I was gonna have the athleticism I had, or have. But I worked when I got an ounce of energy left, or I got a gas tank full. I'm always trying to look at different ways to improve, and like I just look at this as a new challenge in my career, to where it's now my mind is developing more as a coach, and I can see things differently, and I can articulate it to the kids to where it actually like they retain it. So that's been like my biggest, I guess, icing on the cake, so to speak.
Right. So how did you both end up connecting? And then also, what was the interest in having this based in Kansas City compared to other parts of the US?
This has kind of always been my dream. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I played for a club called Omaha Sports Academy. I was in eighth grade. It was the first year that it opened, and this was before facilities were a thing. AAU was, not what it is today, but kind of starting to grow. And I just always, from eighth grade, I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. So I ended up going to KU and getting a sports management degree and interning, doing 5 years, 6 years for a great company, GABL, Great American Basketball League. Got lucky enough to be placed with their GABL future teams, with a group of fifth graders that just graduated this past year. I had seven of them, and they kind of rode the system, even though we weren't the best team ever to start that first year, second year, but we got better and better. And then by the time, let's see, my guys were probably sophomores, so this was what, 2023, spring of 23 tryouts. Um, I was also coaching the fifth graders at the time, and I got a call from my assistant because I wasn't able to make the first tryout, and he was like, "Man, you'll never guess who tried out." And it
Well,
was
not to interrupt, but I'll add some humor to this. So basically, Jackson was about to cut my son
no,
from the
I
from the
wasn't even
basketball
there.
team. There we go. There go some smiles, man.
Whatever.
Just keep it straightforward. No,
So no, so his son Quincy, who at the time was a fifth grader, I'm a whole 5'11" and 3/4, 6 foot on a good day. Quincy was in fifth grade, about as tall as me, and he had some work to do, and so we brought him on. And I met Wally, and I was like, "Hey, if you ever want to come to a high school practice and just talk to the guys, again, I had been with this group for a long time, so he showed up, and I thought he was going to have all these magical drills and all these things because we were kind of at a spot where it was stagnant. Basketball, especially in this AAU world, sometimes you need a change of voice if you've been with somebody for too long, even if somebody else is saying the same thing, whether they're an ex-player, an ex, whatever it is. So I figured Wally was going to come in, solve all my problems of transition drills and defense. And every question I asked him, he responded with the same drills we've been doing for years. So I'm like, all right, on to something here. And, you know, I like to say it, Wally never left. He stayed in the gym with me, even though he wasn't necessarily part of the staff. And I'll never forget, it was Easter that year, and I got a call from Wally. He was like, hey, man, I've been thinking, I've always wanted to do this, and it's pretty much aligned with my vision of starting my own program. And we decided that August of 23 to separate and start Kruse Elite Basketball Academy, Kiba. Um, and that's kind of how him and I got together, started it, and the rest is history.
I mean, like how I got here. I was finishing up playing in Greece. Found out I had a hernia on my spinal cord, so I had to come home to get spinal surgery. And like I said before, it was time to kind of like get my wheels moving and try to see what like real life was like, you know. And no, like I was making good money back in DC, but something was missing. and my son was here in Kansas. So I literally just shut down shop, gave my job my 2 week notice, kind of packed up everything, drove out to Kansas, had no idea what I was gonna be doing, anything like that. Landed a spot at a car dealership. So like me being a dad brought me here, and kind of brought this thing, keep it together because now that I was here, I'm made it adamant that I just be at all his games and all that stuff. Good, no matter how good or bad he played, but get an opportunity to be a dad, and I work the score clock, to do the stat book and stuff like that. And then one day, this weird white kid walks up to me and started talking to me about about coaching and all this and that, even before he mentioned his name. And then, like he said, man, it's everything just kind of clicked, and it was aligned. And um, I wanted to grow more as a player, grow more in basketball, and I could no longer do that as a player. So it was time to like seek new avenues on how do I grow within this same game that I love. So
It's kind of one of those you can't really explain moments. It just happened for a reason. Us two coming together, having the same vision, and we just kind of jumped off the ledge 2 months after and started it.
My first question for both of you guys is what is your definition of a great leader?
Great leader.
I mean, I can from what I've seen, like a great leader is someone who's not afraid to fail. Like most people are afraid to lead because they're afraid of failure, and they're afraid of like letting the team down. Like it's a leader, is somebody who can uh, take the last shot in basketball terms and deal with the consequences. That's part of being a man in itself. It's like you're gonna make choices throughout life, but whether good or bad, you got to deal with the consequences. And I think that that's what defines a leader. It's not someone who's willing to take the chance, it's someone who's willing to deal with the consequences.
I think there's different types of leaders. I think what we're missing in today's day and age is a vocal leader, just in basketball in general. Um, it's very rare that we find a kid that wants to talk and be a vocal leader.
Mm-hmm.
But I think leading by example on the court, not everybody wants to go for the loose ball. Not everybody wants to go grab that rebound. Rebounding's toughness. There's only so many box out drills you can do. So I think, leading by example and leading with your voice in the game of basketball. But I think you can take all that, everything you learn in basketball, you take outside of life.
And so one of the things I want to ask you about is about the youth sports. A lot of times where I see like a lot of people are kind of like outcome focused, where like people focus on just getting the wins and stuff. How do you guys like instill to your players on how to focus on the process? And do you guys keep stats during games? Like, do you keep hustle stats, like diving for loose balls, like every time you box out? Like, do you guys keep track of some things like that? Just to...
Yeah, so that's something that I picked up on this last summer. Coach Wally can probably attest. I'll keep track of offensive rebounds and points off offensive rebounds, turnovers, the little things, what I say, win or lose you a game, rebounding battle, turnover battle, free throws. And then I'll do some little hustle stats. But that's something we're trying to implement all around the program just to show that, hey, on every level, if you get out rebounded by 20, you're giving them another chance at 40 to 60 points, even though it might be a fourth grade game that ends up 17-12. That's still an extra, this many points. So what do we got to do to fix that? So I like to, yes, absolutely. It's tough. When you have X amount of teams, you can't have, not everybody can, write coach.
Right.
If you don't have an assistant, sometimes just AAU gets hectic, and Wally and I may not be able, we may play at the same time. So we're by ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find the best system to kind of mark things like that. But I'm a firm believer that, those are the three keys to winning and losing the game: rebounds, turnovers, and hustle stat.
Yeah, I think my high school coach used to always say like the team that gets the most deflections usually wins the game.
Or, or they say if you get 9 kills, which a kill is 3 stops in a row, if you get 9 kills, you win the game about 100% of the time, almost.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite ones is about offensive rebounds. It's like if you get the second offensive rebound, you have like a 40% chance to score a third time,
Mhm.
60%, fourth time at 80%. It just keeps going up.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I don't know the exact stats on that, but I can tell you from just watching and coaching from everything professional to second graders, it's the same.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it definitely matters. Like whether it's, I mean, obviously it depends on the time on the clock, but it's only so many possessions, or like I tell the kids, there's only so many possessions in a basketball game.
Mhm.
So like when we turn the ball over, when we give up offensive rebounds, there's more and more possessions we're giving them out of the allotted amount. So the guys who win the possession battle usually win the game.
I was listening last night. I was listening to a clip of I think it was All the Smoke podcast, and Calvin Sampson was on with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, and I thought this was an interesting point Calvin brought up. I wanted to ask you guys. He talked about how he thinks that you should play more games, you get a little bit more game simulation. He's not a fan of like just dribbling around cones all day because it doesn't really, even though it's skill work, but it doesn't simulate sometimes a game when like a defender comes by you. How do you guys try to balance out, get really good skill work, but make it like game simu like, so get you prepared for any game situation?
Before you get going, Wally, this goes all the way back to why we hang our hat on skills development. That guy right there, Coach Jalen, who's not here, like I said, they don't just throw cones out and say, hey, make this move, make this move. They break it down to where it makes sense and into levels of where, okay, you do this, he's going to do that. So let's work on that. And then we work on the counter to that. And then we work on the counter to that. And like I said before, Wally and Jalen do a great job of explaining maybe the same exact concept to a 12th grader and they do as a fifth grader. So that's, I mean, those guys are great at it. Nothing against cone drills. I think there's places for it, but when you get in a game, are you getting guarded by a cone? Nope.
Nope.
So I'll let Wally take over from there because I'm not the skills director or development guy, but I think he'd agree.
I mean, the main difference is that we are former athletes. Like me and Jalen both played basketball to a level that these kids haven't seen. So, one thing about me always being an athlete, I pride myself on being in shape. So it's like I can't tell a kid to do X, Y, and Z or push through this if I can't do it. So literally, the difference between probably our workouts and everybody else's is that you have Division 1 level, Division 2 level, professional level guys guarding you. So like you're not. So it's not just cone, move here, move there. We slide a trash can at you. No, I'm 6'10", I'm athletic, and I can still move. So now you got it even with a fifth grader who's 5'3", 5'5". Now you got to really figure out how to get those angles and get your shot off against different things. We might have a small group where Jalen's guarding the guy on the perimeter, working through his progression, and now he gets downhill, and I got it. He has to score over me, and I mean I don't. Not a lot of trainers can really offer a 6'10" rim contested or even a 6'10" perimeter defender. Just because once you're able to understand that like the person in front of you doesn't matter, then you become a better basketball player. Because I mean, I heard people say like Kobe said, but I can even tell you from personal experience, like once work on your game to a key, you don't see that guy in front of you. You see the help because basketball is 9 times out of 10 it's reactive. You work on these moves and you drill them. So when you do make them, they don't seem new to you. But at the end of the day, once you're in the game, you're feeding off reaction. That's why kids do the cone drills or whatever it is, and then they're like, man, this kid got handles, and then you throw him in the game, and he's struggling against a press or just a man to man.
Or
So
he makes that move he's been working on in a cone day in and day out, and it doesn't work against the defender. And now he's like, "Uh-oh, what
yeah,
now?"
because cones don't have arms and hands.
Mhm.
So you know what I mean? Like, and
But yeah,
I always try to teach a kid how to manipulate the defense. Like, once I started to understand the game, there was certain spots I wanted to hit, and I knew if I got there, this I would limit his options. It's like chess. Like once I get here, he has 2 to 3 ways on how to defend it.
Mhm.
So one, if I see this, I know to do this. If I see that, I know to do that. So just teach them how to think the game 2 levels deep.
that's the biggest thing is think the game. Think the game. Don't be robots is what we always say.
Yeah. And how much do you like courage playing pickup and like maybe not making things like structured, like trying new things out, trying to maybe get more of a feel when you play pickup without like being in like a game situation, just see if it works or not. Like,
Hmm.
And we encourage as much pickup, as much outside ball as possible.
hmm
It's just a different generation now. I can speak for Wally and myself, at least kind of our generation. We learn through playing. We learn through playing against older guys, whether it be on the concrete, at the 24-hour fitness, whatever it was, we just played or we saw an ESPN highlight and all of a sudden we had an hour until we could see it again. So we had to go try to reenact that. Nowadays it's hard, there's only a certain breed of kids that want to go do the extra work. And even if it is open gym or scrimmage, but like our practices, for example, we like to keep them competitive and controlled scrimmage based
hmm
to where they have a set of parameters, right? Whether it's a 10-minute game and we're playing man to man, we keep control of it, but let them play within it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
We even make
absolutely.
we even make it weird for them. Like you might have a six defender out there. Um, like the way I always looked at it is just like when you take the SAT, did you do better when you studied for the 3, 4 months before? Did you do better once you failed it? Once you failed it, you understood. So that's the kind of difference between um, game simulations and just drills. When in the game simulation, you might make that mistake. You might try to make a overhand backdoor pass, and it gets stolen in that scrimmage. Now in the game, you know you got to bounce past it because it's now muscle memory. It's your reaction instead of you throwing it on the left side of the cone to make sure an imaginary guy can catch it.
Yeah. Made me think. I remember when I was growing up, I remember when and one was like a really big thing. And I remember the professor, I was watching a video on him. He said he never did any drills growing up. He just freelance and just try to dribble the ball through his legs, just try to practice all the moves and just focus on just being creative. Like sometimes you just don't need a bunch of drills just to do. Sometimes you just need to just free yourself and just go out there and just try to have fun and try to do something and then practice it over and over again.
Go
Mhm.
out, yeah, and that's kind of the difference in then and now is it's so focused on the bag. I got to have this bag and whereas I
Mhm.
know I've heard Wally tell a story. Shoot, I heard Jeff Teague tell a story on the 520 the other day. Like they would go out and go 2 blocks down and try to not go between the legs every single time 2 blocks down. If they screwed up, they go back, right? That's just how we learned, but it's different. So it's a fun challenge to adapt to as a coach, but at the same time, it's tough because it's like you can't force somebody to do something that they're not accustomed to or they don't want to.
Do you guys know who the Asar and Amen Thompson brothers are?
Mhm.
Do
Okay, I don't know like the full details, but I did hear a story about when they were growing up, they went X amount of miles from their house and they dribbled a basketball on the sidewalk with only using their left hand strictly. And then they did the exact same thing with their right hand and they just kept doing it over and over again. And that's how they were able to develop that muscle memory and able to develop those just being able to have not a weak hand because
Both hands. Yep.
yeah. So that well, I was thinking about that when you guys just told that story.
Playing pickup, playing against people older than you, going out and creating yourself is a lost art. I don't know if we'll ever find it again, but that's how we grew up. But again, like I said, we're adjusting to it, and trying to figure out what makes these guys tick and what's going to make them better.
I think for guys to get better, they gotta try to push the envelope. Like I got the chance to come out with a very talented group of guys with like John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, Avery Bradley, but like the thing that made us different is like we were trying to push the envelope. Like, if it was a dunk contest, I wasn't just trying to do the dunks I was going to win. I was trying to do things that nobody ever seen before. John is going into, the Jordan All-American game trying to be the all-time leader in assists. But it's like we kept trying to push the envelope and kept trying to outdo like what was next. I remember being in like NBA Top 100 camp, and guys are tired from drills, and we probably played an early morning game, and we having a dunk off because everybody want to prove that they the best dunker, or 3-point shootouts. So it was like that was the difference, and I think a lot of guys now get things so instantaneous that it's like it's almost overlooked the work through it.
Instant gratification is a big thing that we deal with, and so it's hard to it's hard to balance, because kids want to see results right away.
I'll
But
tell you guys. I'll tell you guys something. Just to get off the topic, not too much, but like a story about me. Um, when I got ranked in the country, I had no idea. I didn't have a computer, didn't have a cell phone. A kid in my school came up to me and told me like, "I want to be like you one day." I'm like, I didn't believe him. And so it was an older guy who went to my high school named Calvin Cage, who was like one of the better players from the past. Ended up at the University of Buffalo, played pro for a bunch of years. And he used to come back and work out. So I remember that day after school, I like ran down to the gym 'cause I knew Calvin was going to be there. And I look at him, I'm like, man, I did it. And he's like, what you talking about? I'm like, man, I'm number 23 in the country. And he was just like, hmm, and just kept shooting. So I'm like, man, I did something you never did before. And he goes, it all depends on how you look at it. If they said I was number 23 in the country, I just feel like they saying there's 22 people better than me. And then I was like, ah, you know what I mean? Like these kids can
Mhm.
kind of settle in with a little bit of gratitude they may receive early.
and there's so much nowadays when it comes to recruiting services and rankings and this and that, and it's they get lost and all that. It's just, again, it's different. It's definitely different. It's funny you brought up band one, because that kind of tags along with hoop mixtape back in the day. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
remember that.
Hmm.
Wally was one of the first hoop mixtapes I remember watching, and now everybody from first graders to seniors are have their own hoop mixtape pretty much. So it's just a whole different scenery.
It's funny, speaking of like hoop mixtape, there was Ball is Life mixtape, which I watched both of those. When I was in high school, it was like I remember watching. It was this fourth grader, Mike Miles, and like 8 years later, I see him playing at TCU, and it's like that's like just blows my mind just watching this guy as fourth grader have his own mixtape, and now he actually was playing college basketball in the Big 12. It was just like kind of crazy just seeing that.
Yep. But then you think about the guys that you saw that were fourth graders that you never saw again back then, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Jay Sean Augusto and guys like that.
Yeah.
But again, it's
Yeah.
it's a whole different. You can see a video clip of any kid that damn near plays basketball nowadays. That
I mean, it's a gift and a curse, man. With with
Yep,
with the with the growth of social media and things like that, man, it's a gift and a curse.
for
Like
sure.
like Jackson was saying, when I was coming out of high school, if you had a hoop mixtape or Ballers Life mixtape, man, you were probably a top 20 player in the country.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And now, like you said, like everybody has one. It's almost oversaturated to where, and not no shade or anything, to where like kids will watch a highlight tape of like Bronny James,
Mhm.
and they'll just see 8 points scored in 10 different angles. And then they think like, oh, this is, but they don't look at the entire game.
Mhm.
And it's a gift and a curse because it gives the kids the exposure and helps you reach out to people that you might not have been able to capture before. But
For
then
sure.
it's also the backside of, the kids who do get fed into early. Like, we watching Mikey Williams play at Sacramento State.
Mhm.
Who would ever thought that?
Yeah.
So,
I think another guy just popped in my head, Seventh Woods. When he
Yep.
was like 14, he was already doing like some just insane like 360 dunks as like a eighth grader. And then like you never really heard about him when he got to college, and then not really sure where he's at now, but
Well, and
he's
I think that
great.
generation too, that was just such the entry point of social media, so to
Yeah.
speak. And it was YouTube that,
Mhm.
you know, you have a camera on you back then.
Yeah.
That was unheard of, especially in seventh grade. Now it's like expected. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Julian Newman.
yep.
So,
I don't think I want to say Alonzo Ball and like Leandro, like the Ball brothers. I didn't really hear about them until like when I was like a freshman in college. Like
Shout out my man LeVar.
the bar, man. Yeah. But I want to go back to the instant gratification thing, which I really love that you brought it up. And then, so we talk about the transfer portal, like this, where like guys are just transferring out. How important do you think it is, like, to like maybe like stick it out for a second year rather than like immediately transfer, maybe try to stick around, develop? I mean, like at KU right now, I think about Jamari McDowell and El Marco Jackson. They've been in a program for 3 years. They both redshirt last year. Obviously, El Marco was because of an injury, but Jamari decided to redshirt rather than hit the portal. How important do you think it is? Like some of these guys, they should just try to stay and make it work at their school rather than just immediately hitting the portal after 1 year.
uh,
That's a double-edged
I
sword.
have a lot of opinions on that, but
Yeah, I mean, we could
nah,
we can do another episode on that.
Yeah.
I would just say that I would just say you gotta give some guidelines. Like I think with the NIL era, if a kid signs to a school, I think it should be mandatory 2 years. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So I mean, like, unless you go pro, but it should be, if I like, same way they made guys sit out when they used to transfer, same way you gotta make me sit in. You know what I mean? If I transfer from Alabama to Auburn because I'm trying to get a bigger bag, so to speak, I gotta be at Auburn 2 years. And those NILs adjust, they can adjust year by year based off performance. So that's one way of looking at it. But then the other way I look at it is like, man,
Most of these
uh,
kids won't go get as much as they can get in the 5 to 6 years they can get in college. It's
well, I
that,
was gonna say, college coaches have been doing it for years. How many
yeah.
coaches have recruited this guy, and this guy, or an All-American to help boost their program, and then they win, and then the next year they're at from San Diego State to UConn or something like that,
Mhm.
and then those kids who they did recruit, they couldn't just transfer the same way and play right away. You know what I mean? So I just feel like after certain amount of
It's
time, things kind of turn themselves around.
and
Yeah.
I could relate it back to even like Kiba because a lot of our kids that we send to college are NAIA, D2, things like that. That whole process sucks for them because NAIs, D3s, D2s, they have to wait until after your senior year to know if their guys are transferring up and out, staying, leaving, what they have coming in. So you got a bunch of seniors, right, that
Mhm.
are college basketball type kids. We've got a kid right now. Shout out Will Beck, William Jewell, Kiva's first D2 player. Um, he didn't even know that William Jewell, we didn't know that William Jewell was looking at him until the day before Sub-State last year. And that was Sub-State was their last game of the year. Sure enough, got a scholarship. right? So it's crazy, but I think it's also individual based. Because I've worked with some people that work in the industry, and I think some kids, like I said, they'd rather go somewhere and be the 10th man, not get a lot of time, but you may next year, this year, make $100,000 to chill out and sit. Or you may be a kid that wants to get a lot more playing time, but you're going to go to a mid-major, low major and make less because you don't care as much about the money. I think it's personalized to the kid just as much as it is just the game in general, getting to know how a kid ticks, right? Um, but I mean, that NIL stuff, we could go on for years, and it'll change in 6 months.
Yeah. I think it's even going to be more challenging now for like a lot of high schoolers because you think about those international guys who are like Dame Star who has like pro experience now
Oh yeah.
because of NIL, where those guys were years before were ineligible to play college basketball. Now that they are eligible, that might take up a couple more spots for some of those guys too.
I mean, I foresee it's going to keep changing, and it's going to keep trickling down to high school, which kind of scares me
Yeah.
because next thing you know, you're going to be paying freshmen and sophomores, and then it's going to go down just like the circuit has to
Yeah.
eighth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade, fifth grade. So we'll see how it
And
goes with that. We don't, as Kiba, don't deal too much with that yet. But I'm sure it's gonna, in the next year or two, will be something that we deal with.
Yeah, yeah, I think too, and I also do concern me some because I think sometimes I think the parents might be like a driving factor too, which might drive the player from going from playing the sport internal motivation. Now they got all this external pressure on them, and then may drive them out of playing sports in general, which I know a lot of youths have been dropping out of sports because of that. So that's something that is very concerning when you brought that up, not just for the college athletics, but also in youth sports too, which might drive kids out of youth sports because they're tired of the external pressure of like having to be able to make this shot or catch this pass or hit the ball.
we have kids who literally after every play look into the stands. And I think like that's part of that drawback I said earlier, like with the media aspect. Now it's almost like every parent with a video camera and a editing system and computer is trying to make highlight tapes. To where like dude, my mom literally didn't see me play basketball live until I was at the McDonald's game. Like she was working, she was, trying to put food on the table. Now with the social media aspect and YouTube and things like that, people just, I mean, they want to do what's right for the kid by all means, but like I said, it's just like you said, it can be overbearing, and then the
Well,
kid feels like this is a job.
well, and the thing is, what people don't realize, and what one of our main missions is to educate parents too. If you haven't had a kid that's gone through it, especially nowadays, they need as much education as the kid does. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are starting to play for these, circuit teams or whatever it may be in seventh grade, eighth grade, doing all this, spending so much money when really a coach can't talk to you till after your sophomore year. And also, I've been told I can't even tell you how many from D1 all the way down coaches that have said, if you're not top 100, we're not even thinking about you coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's not even they don't even waste their time to go to the tournaments anymore, because why take a unproven 18-year-old when you've got a kid that's been sitting at a JUCO playing against high high level guys of his caliber that's not 20. So it's backwards.
For sure. And I think about with the college basketball transfer portal too. You get somebody playing in a mid-major program, and a lot of those guys end up transferring over to like the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10 schools. A lot of them actually do end up like thriving pretty much. It's kind of like that next step from like, the mid-major to like end up playing big time college basketball. Like CJ McCollum would not have played at Lehigh for 4 years if he was playing today. He would be going to like like Kansas, Duke, or North Carolina, and
Steph
think
Curry.
about
Yeah.
Damian Lillard played 4 years at Weber State. I think he would have ended up transferring somewhere to a top school as well. Like, and then like maybe Kawhi Leonard, maybe there's a lot of great
I
players
think
who found like really good systems at the mid-major level. Paul George was another example. They went to like this environment where it fit their skill set and they thrived really well. And I think that's one of the things that with the transfer portal, I think it's a really cool thing though to see guys go from a mid-major and then prove themselves at the level. But it does kind of like it's kind of a bummer to see some of those guys like the Davidsons who have like Steph Curry for all 4 years, and like Steph maybe he would have transferred to like another program, and
Well, you're a KU fan, correct?
yeah,
So it's probably tough for you because they're not going to be the 4-year point guards anymore, right?
yeah, for
The,
sure.
the Devontaes, the Franks, those guys, that era is done.
Yeah,
And so that's why I believe you see Kansas having a harder time adjusting to NIL because now everybody's in the same playing field.
yeah,
And then even Coach Cal, he's still kind of running the same method, a little bit not,
mhm.
struggles here, there. It's just, you just never know. I mean, you never know year in and year out. Hopefully this revenue sharing thing can cap it a little bit and, you
Mhm.
know, a little bit more tame, but we'll see. But that's a
I think
headache
it
I
adds
don't
more
want to think
parity.
about until I have to.
Yeah.
Like in a sense of like saying you see the reverse too. You see guys from these KUs who haven't been playing transfer to these lower major schools and really get a chance to blossom.
Yeah.
They can bounce back up and then you know, prove themselves again.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's pros and cons to all of it. It's
Yeah.
going to be with everything. Uh,
Right.
but like I said, I try not to headache about that until we have to headache about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got one more question for you guys. I've enjoyed this conversation. I think it's awesome. I enjoy like conversations like this about youth sports, etc. But what advice would you give to those youth athletes that are chasing their goals, and what would be one word of advice you would want to give to them today?
There's something we say in our program. There's three things you can control at all times: attitude, effort, and energy. If you go out and control those three things will usually turn in your favor. Whether that's basketball or that's life. Um, if you play with high energy, you have the best attitude possible, even when things are going wrong. I've watched kids lose scholarships in one play. Um, you know, move on to the next play. Attitude, effort, energy. That's my biggest thing is bring that at all times, whether it's your high school tryout, your high school game, AAU game at 8 a.m., 8 AAU game at 4 p.m. Um, that's my biggest thing is bring that and, give 100 at all times, even if your 100% might be 80% right now because you played 4 games all weekend. Just give all you can.
You see guys who are 60 years old still going to YMCA shooting the basketball. It's not because they played pro. It's not because they made millions of dollars. It's because they fell in love with the game. When you fall in love with the game, you fall in love with the process. You fall in love with like the falling 9 times, getting up 10. You fall in love with the triumphant moments. You fall in love with the failures, and you learn every level of it. But you have to love this game entirely. Like you can't get up on the good days and lay down on the bad ones. Like it's got to be a consistency, and like that's what make good players great. Consistency. Great players can do it every single night, whether they got the flu like Jordan or whether they got to wear a face mask like Rip Hamilton. They're gonna go and they're gonna do it every single night. So I just tell kids, man, fall in love with the game. Don't mean you're gonna be a pro, but you're gonna meet the love of your life, basically.
Absolutely. Love hearing both of those words of wisdom there. And Jackson and Wally, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. And I wish you nothing but the best. Wish more success for you guys, but also success for the guys who come through your program. And I'm excited to hear about more guys that come through your program and have a success not just right now, but also in the future as well with whatever they do.
Just one last question. How can parents that want their kids to continue to develop their skills in the game of basketball that are in the Kansas City area, what are the best ways for them to connect with both of you guys?
So we're on all social media, and our website is probably the best, cruiselitebasketballacademy.com. Instagram, same thing, Kruse Elite. It'll pop up, and Twitter. All of our information is blasted on there. There's questionnaires, there's tryout stuff, there's stuff about skills on the website. So that's the easiest. We just got our website up and going about a month ago. So I'd say go there first, and if not, then check our Instagram page.
Yeah, after this, I will be watching Wally Judge's highlight tape.
Hey, go to the first one. Yeah, third dunk, you'll be impressed.
It just keeps making me, you guys just keep finding ways to make me feel old, man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully, we can get you on at a later time. Just you, Wally. But just before we end, like it's there's a YouTube channel out there that'll post like old college basketball sports center highlights. And
Yeah,
it's from they have highlights from your time. So I was like seeing you play with Jacob Poland and
Oh,
Curtis Kelly and Denny Clemente. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Nah, that
ask him about the commercial that still runs on Big Monday.
no, I'm not gonna do you that due diligence. I got a whole nother story.
Uh, but
So this is how I knew I was really getting old. Is when I moved to Kansas, probably about 5 years ago. I was selling cars with Nino Williams. I went to K-State, and I'm literally in the middle of a car deal, and I hear my name, like Wally Judge with the rebound. And I look up, and it's us versus Xavier on ESPN Classic. And I was like, oh my God. I was like,
ESPN
ESPN
Classic.
Classic, bro?
Yeah,
Like,
we
oh
love it.
man. Yeah, no, but
Seriously, fellas, appreciate you anytime. And then you got Wally's contact, so we'll follow up. Thank you
yeah.
guys for your time.